it's been a while here on the MT and Me since we've actually worked on Pearl. And that is kind of the point of this show, isn't it? So I thought today we'd get back to work on her. Just a couple of little things involving the electrical system, all right? We're going to do a little cleaning on one of the parts. And then we're also going to talk about a couple of more things we need to buy before we can maybe get that electrical system working again. So a couple of topics there. I guess you might say we're going to alternate between them. Then again, you might not want to say that. I want to thank all of my nomies watching for joining us once again here on the MT and Me. Always good to have you along. Probably not going to have one of those long marathon shows today because basically we're just going to do a little cleaning on Pearl's alternator here and talk about a few other issues that might be going on with the electrical system as well. Okay. Now, the thing about alternators, first of all, I have no reason to suspect that this one is bad, okay? The only thing we have really found damage under Pearl's hood, as far as electricity goes, and the fact that the battery got ripped out and cables got cut. Putting all that aside, the only thing that was really electrically damaged was the voltage regulator, and it has been replaced. Now, it had a total meltdown. Little brief explanation of what's going on here. The alternator in a vehicle is what produces the electricity that keeps the battery charged. That is the purpose of the alternator. It doesn't really run the accessories. It doesn't make the 12 volts that makes everything work. Everything works off of the battery. The alternator keeps the battery charged up as long as the battery's good and everything else in the circuit is good. Now, as the name might imply, this is an alternator, not a generator. The difference between the two, a generator makes DC electricity, an alternator makes AC electricity. The entire vehicle runs off DC, so why the heck do they put an alternator making AC on there to charge a DC battery? That's a pretty good question, and I'm not sure I have an answer to that one, but I can tell you that that's the way it is. Alternator produces probably about 13 to 15 volts AC when it's working right, okay? It goes to a voltage regulator to keep it from getting over that, because the faster it turns, the more voltage it makes. And you don't want to put more than 14 or 15 volts into your battery or you start burning stuff up. All right? So that's what the voltage regulator does. Before it does that, the alternator itself has these nice little things built in right here called diodes. The diodes take the three parts of the AC, it's three-phase AC, and turn it into DC, so that that alternating current going both directions only gets blocked into one direction, and everything goes the same direction, and voila, you have DC. Simple, yeah, right, okay. That's the basic electricity lesson for the day here. Anyway, the alternator does all that. It makes AC, turns it into DC, sends it into the vehicle through the voltage regulator, and the voltage regulator goes to the battery, makes sure it has a constant, steady voltage to keep it charged up. No matter what speed you're running, whether the alternator voltage that I mentioned there, probably 13, 14 volts, that's based on idle speed. In other words, when the engine's idling, that's what this alternator should be producing, okay? As you speed up, it makes more, but the voltage regulator keeps it at that figure. Your battery is 12 volts, of course, more or less, 12.5 volts, to get technical about it. So it keeps that charge on it as long as the whole system's working. So all that being said, I really have no reason to think that there's anything wrong with the alternator. So I'm going on that assumption. You really have to have the alternator in situ, installed in the engine, to do a full testing of it. And, well, I obviously don't have that, and even if I did, the engine's not running at this point anyway. So some of this we're going to have to do a little later on. What I am going to do today is get this old rascal cleaned up. I mean, there are dust, dirt, spider webs down inside it. So we're just going to take a rag and a wire brush and go to town on it so that it will look nice and clean, whether it works or not. Now, you'll notice that I do have my alternator book here. Yes, my trusty know-it-all encyclopedia of Pearl. Thank you again, Reed, for getting this for me. It is proving invaluable. It has already paid for itself many times over. And it has an entire section of alternator information in it, including it even has a complete chart on how to take it apart. Well, I'm not interested in doing that because I would need a pulley remover and several other things, a couple of specialized tools. And like I said, I don't know that it's bad, so why mess with something that may be perfectly good? So what I can do is give it a good cleaning, and that's going to start with a wire brush on the outer case. You can tell this is the part right here that was up against the engine. It's so dark and discolored. Well, I got a lot of stuff off of it and out of it. Get my work surface clean so I can see what happens next. Okay. Cursory inspection. The pulley looks good. I've been kind of concerned because basically Pearl was parked and just set for a number of years with tension on the fan belts and them not moving just in one place. So I cut the belts off a long time ago, but there's no residue, no damage to the pulley, so that's good. It turns very freely and sounds good, so I'm assuming that the bearings inside are still good. There's a bearing in front, of course, and one here in the back. And, you know, when you take it apart, you can replace those. But I'm not going to unless it's absolutely necessary. If I had to do too much work to this, it would probably just be worthwhile to replace the entire alternator. But we're not to that point yet. Kind of wishing I had an air compressor, air hose. I could blow this out. That would be the thing to do. Don't have one. Probably should see about getting one. because I'm sure in the Pearl restoration project it would come in very handy. I'll put that on my want list. Okay, we'll do that. We'll put that on the things I would love to have list. Nice air compressor. Ooh, I could get like impact air-powered wrenches too. I just got a chill down my spine. Oh. Okay, that's over with. Now, back to the alternator. I think we're in pretty good shape there. I have brought my test meter out just in case I need to test continuity and all, but I really don't see the need to at this point. There's only 3 connections. You've got here on the back, here and here are where your brushes go in, and the brushes are still attached to the wiring in Pearl. I just have to take the screws out, put them back in place. And this is where your big heavy connection to the battery goes. So it's power in here, power out here. Because you're thinking power in, doesn't it make power? Yes, it does. It makes AC, but it has to have power to make power because the stator coils have to be energized. I'm not going to go into an electrical dissertation here. Trust me on this, okay? It has to be hooked up to the battery for it to function anyway. So we have a reasonably clean alternator. It certainly doesn't look new by any means, but it doesn't have any cobwebs and very little plant material on it now. I think I've got most all of that off. So anyway, I think we're in pretty good shape. We're going to call the alternator clean for the time being. We're getting closer and closer to actually getting this electrical system hooked up and see if we can turn that motor over. Now, a couple other things I want to talk about today, aside from the alternator. I told you we were going to alternate, right? I know, bad joke. But it has to do with the electrical system on the car. First of all, you remember a month and a half, I guess close to 2 months ago, we were messing with the battery. We hooked up a battery and got one of the lights to work for just a moment, and then apparently that bulb burned out. But everything else was working. Even the radio worked. Couldn't pick up anything, but that static sure sounded nice, didn't it? And then I came back a week later and had nothing. And I could not charge the battery with my brand new fancy high fidelity battery charger either. Well, the battery's bad. You know, I finally got it carried in and had it checked. It won't hold a charge. So I've got to buy a new battery. I'm just going to buy one outright, brand new, so we'll know it's good and we can keep it charged up, and that'll give us our power source for Pearl. Because we need one to test the alternator, to get the motor running, to do everything else. Okay. So battery is going to be one of the next purchases. And beyond that, I'm also going to buy 2 new headlights. Told you from the start, I was pretty sure the lights were bad, and they've got to be. One of them may have a high beam, but one of them is completely burned out, and they may both be completely. The point is, she needs new headlights. She deserves some new eyes, so we're going to buy them. Those suckers, old sealed beam headlights for a late 70s Dodge van. They're about, I think the best price I found is right around $18 a piece. So they're not real cheap, but got to knuckle down and buy them because I certainly want to be able to drive her in the dark. So we've got those 2 things on the horizon. I told you, I think a couple of weeks ago, that I have bought a new transmission filter, and of course it's a kit. It comes with the gasket that goes on the transmission pan, because you always replace the gasket when you drop the pan. So we'll be doing that. I just have to get some transmission fluid. Cannot quote to you off the top of my head exactly how much, but it's probably going to be, I would guess, somewhere between 5 and 7 quarts. If I just had to, if you had to push me for an answer right now, somewhere in that range. we'll have to get the transmission fluid, probably by a gallon plus a quart or two, and we'll get the transmission fluid changed out. Now, as for the oil, well, we're still working on ideas to get that dipstick tube piece removed. It is, so far, I thought, well, and correctly so. If you recall, about a year and a half ago, when we were trying to get the rear brake drum that was stuck off of Pearl, and I spent the best part of, I think, about 3 weeks trying everything under the sun, because the brake shoe had slipped and wedged in. I found this out later, had slipped and wedged inside the drum, and it was solidly wedged. That drum was not going to move. It wouldn't pull off. It wouldn't rotate. It would not nothing except sit there. We finally got it loose. Finally got it off of there. You know, I thought it was never going to happen. I have the same attitude with that little bitty, stubborn, less than an inch piece of aluminum tubing that's stuck in the engine block where the dipstick tube goes in. It is being so ornery and not wanting to come out, but I am going to get it out. I will be victorious. I keep telling myself that. So, we've got that to work on too. Once we do, hey, I'll put the dipstick, the new tube in, and we will change the oil, and by that time we'll have the battery and hopefully have all the electrical system hooked up. I'll get the alternator put back on Pearl, put some fan belts on her, because she's going to need those, and at least be able to turn the motor over and see if everything's going to function. Now, in order to actually run the engine, that's going to mean reinstalling the radiator cooling system. And I can do that too, because I've got the radiator cleaned up and ready. I have brand new radiator hoses. Debating heater hoses. I haven't really taken a close look at those to see if I need to replace them or not, but we'll check that out as well. Here again, they've been there a long time and they've just been sitting. It probably is going to be a good idea to replace them as well. Okay, so a couple of heater hoses. And what else? Thermostat. Almost forgot about that. I do need to replace, especially once I get the radiator hoses off. She needs a new thermostat. Here again, things probably all corroded up from sitting there for so long. I seriously doubt it would work properly. It might work, but not efficiently. So we'll put a new thermostat in, so I can go ahead and buy that, order that, and have it ready to go too. And I'm sure there's other stuff. I have a list. You know, I'm keeping a list of things. So, and now we've added air compressor to that list. Not that Pearl needs it, but it would come in handy in some of this work, okay? So, one more thing to check there, all right? But we need a battery. And hopefully, maybe by next time, I'll have one. Cross your fingers. And join us again every Sunday right here on the MT and Me. I so appreciate you watching. If you look down below, you'll find links to buy me a coffee, to help out with the Pearl Restoration Project if you'd like. Also a link to themtandme.com, where there's more information on a lot of this stuff I talk about. Try to put on there as much as we can. And there's the address of our Facebook page too. You can follow along on the MT and Me on Facebook. Okay. Please be a part of the plan. Subscribe if you have not done so already. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and that'll help Facebook like me more and like the MT and Me. And like I said, subscribe, thumbs up, share the video, and be here every Sunday to see what the heck is going on with me and Pearl on the MT and Me. That is going to be it for this week. Thank you so much, my Nomies, for everything you do for me. I love you guys. I'm Russ. We'll talk later. It's alternating. Can't you hear it? It's alternating. Up by the mic.